makes me think this way because when you see guys like Barry Bonds who were so clearly on performance enhancing drugs that it and they may have been on them. There's a lot of bad players who were on performance enhancing drugs too. Manny Alexander was busted for PEDs 3-4 times, and he was a marginal player at best, a bench player for many years with the Cubs and with the Orioles. So it's tough. It's a really tough situation. But when you don't know who's using and who's not using, but the Hall of Fame, just like you were talking about with the WWF or WWE, whatever you want to call it, it's set up to say this handful of guys was the best group of players during their time. No one's going to sit there and say that the best player from 1955 would be a good player today. You can even look at like the NBA. You could take the top 10 players from the NBA in the 1960s. Would they be even all-stars today? Who knows?
Right.
Because people have gotten faster. People have gotten taller. So you base it on that era. And in that era, it makes that conversation very difficult. It makes that situation very difficult to assess because they were the best players of that era. And Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa saved baseball with that 1998 home run derby. Everybody was captivated by Sosa and McGwire in 1998. I'm sure you're not a baseball fan, but I would almost guarantee you that you tuned in 1998 to watch that home run race.
Absolutely, you did, and you couldn't. It was water cooler debate. It was water cooler talk. It was what was going on at the particular time. You couldn't help. You couldn't help but be caught up in the rapture of that home run race, if you will. Just I'm not.
That's a good word to use.
Yeah. Just like I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I was caught up in the rapture of the Cubs winning the World Series. Absolutely. And
how could you not be?
How could you not be? Exactly. Yeah. You just couldn't be.
It led to Trump being president. Some people say.
Anyways,
but actually, you said you did mention that 30 for 30 with Ric Flair.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I really enjoyed it. It was if you guys haven't watched the ESPN 30 for 30 series, I don't watch all of those, but I do catch a few of them. Catholics versus convicts, Notre Dame versus Miami was a good one, but this Ric Flair one was probably the best one that I've watched. It was this guy slept with he said he slept with 10,000 women. That is Wilt Chamberlain type numbers.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, this guy drinks. I never even really thought of the fact that Ric Flair was a drinker. I never knew until I watched this. I had never heard it. You probably knew.
Yeah, but he just got out the hospital.
Ric Flair drinks like 8 beers a day. I mean, I'm sorry, like 8 beers is the least amount of beers he said he's ever had in a day.
Yeah. 8. Oh yeah, absolutely. No, he literally was just on life support. His daughter, Charlotte Flair, who's current WWE champion or women's champion, was just on a leave of absence because she was next to her father the entire time. He was just on his deathbed. It just happened within the last 30, 40 days.
Yeah, and it's funny. Another thing that they were talking about on that show was, we talked the last couple of shows we've had. We talked about being a father.
Mm-hmm.
Ric Flair had a son that committed either overdose or committed suicide. I'm not sure which. But his son passed away about 4 or 5 years ago, and he was also a wrestler, I guess, on the lower circuits, maybe in Japan or something of that nature. But Ric Flair was a terrible, terrible absent father. He was never with his wives. He was never with his kids. He would come by, buy him stuff, and kind of hit the road. And obviously, a lot of this 30 for 30 reflected on the fact that centered around the fact that he sort of regretted that, in his now old age. I guess he's around 70 years old now. So, but it was a captivating, just absolutely sensational, if you want to call it a film documentary, about Ric Flair and what, how iconic he was to the NWA versus how iconic Hulk Hogan was to the WWE at that time frame. I mean, it just sensationally done. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that's definitely on my list to check out on Netflix, along with The Punisher. We need to do all of that before this neutrality kicks in, because
we have a Punisher show. We will have a Punisher show, and in fact, we got, I think, one more topic we're going to talk about before we sign off here. But our next show is going to be a review. You want to announce it?
Oh, hell yeah. Are you kidding me? So we're going to be reviewing, and we're going to do in-depth analysis on this, but we're going to be reviewing the last 2 superhero movies to come out, Thor, Ragnarok, and Justice League. Now, I've gotten to see both of them, and now Jason's gotten to see both of them.
I think we all have seen both.
Now,
yeah, I went today, and I watched them back to back.
Yep.
I went to the 10 o'clock show for Thor, and then I went to the 1 o'clock show for Justice League, and I had about a 15-minute break in the middle. And I'll tell you one funny thing, though, that happened at the theater. So I'm really looking forward to the next show. But I went to the 1 o'clock show for Justice League, and the theater wasn't super packed. And I told you guys before, I don't like packed theaters.
Right.
But I had I got there early because obviously I had just come from Thor, and I sat down in the first row of seats, in the second section back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not those up front seats where you have to strain your neck to look up. So I sat down about 3 seats over from a guy who was already sitting there. And I already had my drink from the first movie, and I was just sitting there for a few minutes, and I realized about, the third or fourth trailer that I had to take a piss. So there was 3 teenage kids who came and sat next to me, and there was still 1 or 2 chairs between me and them. So when I got up, there was going to be 4 chairs in a row, and I was like, that's going to look inviting to somebody. So I left my drink, I left my cell phone, and I left my glasses in the cup holder, got up, ran to take a piss real quick, came back, shit you not, people were sitting in my seat. I was pissed.
So take us through that one, because how did they find it acceptable with your shit still sitting right there?
Dude, I don't even know. I just grabbed my stuff and started cursing them out and walked away. And I was like, this is fucking ridiculous.
Wow.
So I just, yeah. That just goes to show how that people don't
they don't care
these days.
They don't care.
Yeah, it's an open seat, so I'll just ignore this drink sitting here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh God, I wanted.
Well, I'm glad you didn't. We don't need any. We can't do a podcast with you behind county. That'd be awkward. I can't really put the thing up to the glass with my hand saying, "Hey, just touch my hand from the glass." Can't do
it. Yeah, like Barry Allen. Yep. We're gonna have a good time talking about that. And I know that we had promised some of the listeners that we were going to talk about the comic book heroes who have changed races.
Yes.
We were going to talk about that today, but now that Haas couldn't get on, we decided to go in a slightly different direction. So we'll talk about that
just a little bit.
The next show as well. So our last topic for the night,
I got a topic for us.
Okay.
So we've been talking about Trump and his abuse of Twitter, right? And we've also been talking about professional athletes and we've talked about their use of social media as well. You just mentioned the Olympics, and I wanted to touch base on something that an Olympian recently tweeted about. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Gabby Douglas.
Yeah, I know who she is.
Young African-American
gymnast,
exactly, who won the gold medal
she was 2 Olympics, possibly 3 Olympics.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But anyway, so saying all that to say, Gabby Douglas took to Twitter to respond to one of her teammates in regards to tweeting about sexual abuse. Mm-hmm. And her teammate made a comment, and I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me, but made a comment opening up about the sexual abuse that she received from former USA Gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Another one?
Yeah. Another one.
Every time I turn around, there is somebody getting accused or saying that they were abused. It is unbelievable.
But here's where it gets interesting. So Gabby Douglas, after quoting her, tweeted a screenshot of the paragraph against victim shaming those affected by sexual abuse Friday night. It said, "However, it is our responsibility as women to dress modestly and be classy. Dressing in a provocative sexual way entices the wrong crowd."
Who said this?
Gabby Douglas.
So Gabby Douglas is saying that it's a woman's fault if she's raped, if she dresses sexy.
This is how it comes out. That's exactly how it comes out. So immediately, Twitter ate this little girl up, and I'm talking about Twitter ate her alive.
Yeah.
I could try to read you some of these tweets, but
hey, you know what? That's probably a pretty dumb thing to post. Now, I mean, I can't say that I didn't think that myself. You know, at certain points in time in my life, you know, I would. Okay, so let's get real. So if a girl's at the club and she's wearing a short skirt and she's got her boobs hanging out, and you stare at her and she says, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Then I have some questions for her as to why she asked me that question. You know exactly what the fuck I'm looking at. You wore the shirt.
Right.
Okay,
You did it.
Let's call a spade. Let's call a fucking spade a spade. Okay.
Right.
You know, it's the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue sells because it's the swimsuit issue.
Correct.
So
the naked issue sells because it's the naked issue.
Sex sells.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you know, when I see a beautiful woman dressed provocatively, I feel obligated to look.
Okay.
So you know, but I'm not going to touch you. What
they're talking about is exactly. There's a difference here: looking and not touching. And what I think set Twitter ablaze, obviously, in regards to Gabby Douglas, is that she says, you know, as women, it's their responsibility to dress modestly and classy. Dressing provocative, sexual way entices the wrong crowd. So, you know, as I mentioned, Twitter ate this little girl up, ate her alive. And even her own teammates, obviously, had comments. Say Simone Biles, you know, said that it shocked her that she's seen it, but she said it didn't surprise her, which I thought was a little interesting of a little jab. Like, it shocks me to see it, but it doesn't surprise me coming from her. Honestly, seeing this brings me to tears because as your teammate, I expected more from you and to support her. I support Allie and all other women.
So
out there.
Do me a real quick favor.
Oh yeah,
read the tweet again because I didn't really.
From Gabby.
Yeah.
Okay. Gabby Douglas says, however, it is our responsibility as women to dress modestly and be classy. Dressing in a provocative, sexual way entices the wrong crowd.
Okay.
This is after her teammate Alexandra said we're all in this together. If we're going to create change, I need all of your help. Sexually, women are allowed to feel sexy and comfortable in their own skin. In fact, I encourage you all to wear what you feel is good. I will not put up with any blah blah blah. Any women or girl being shamed for wanting to wear a skirt, dress, etc. I do not tolerate it. Are we clear? Oh, and one more thing: stop victim shaming. It is because of you that so many survivors live in fear. This is what Alexandria said in response to that, and my thing is,
So read the response from me again one more time.
Okay, all right. Alexandria Raisman says, we are all in this together. If we are going to create change, I need all of your help. And she goes on to talk about how I will not put up with any woman or girl being shamed for wanting to wear a skirt, dress, etc. I do not tolerate it. Are we clear? Oh, and one more thing. Stop victim shaming.
Okay.
It's because of you that so many survivors live in fear. Now, I read that out of turn because he actually said that first. And then Gabby Douglas responded saying, however, it is our responsibility as women to dress modestly and be classy. Dressing in a provocative and sexual way entices the wrong crowd.
Okay, so here's my take on that. They're both, in a way, correct. So, and here's what I mean by that. Gabby Douglas is correct when she says that, and the first time that you read it, I think I may have misheard it. I thought basically she was saying she's asking to be raped, but you are enticing the wrong crowd. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. So if you are one of these parents who puts their little girl into one of these talent contests and you got them all dolled up with makeup, so if you think that that's not a magnet for pedophiles, then I got news for you. It is.
Weinstein.
Because now that doesn't. I'm not trying to sit here and say that, that you're a bad person for doing that. But I personally would not put my daughter into those types of competitions because I don't want grown men to objectify my daughter.
Exactly.
So when the first time that my 16-year-old wore a two-piece, back when she was probably 13, I wasn't happy about it. And you can see grown men at the beach, 30 years old, looking at my 12, 13-year-old daughter because she doesn't look 13 years old. So now that I get the context of this,